some weird, Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women That Shred. Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. Hey, Sarah. So I have repeat guests, and I don't know why my computer Siri is like wanting to help. I just saw the little wiggly thing on the top.
Oh, every time you say anything like Sarah or whatever, Siri.
I didn't even think about that. Yes. So that's probably why it popped up. But yes, I have Sarah Crossley here again. You were one of my, I think, first 10, I think within the first 10.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it was even like a first 5.
Maybe. Yeah, that was a year ago. Gosh, time flies. You have bangs now? I don't think you had bangs when we
have bangs. I get them every couple years, and every time, like right when I cut them, I'm like, oh God, what did I do? And then it's, you're like, okay, it's fine, it's cool. I got bangs. I just moved to New York also. So that's like, these are the new New York digs. I figured bangs was kind of, it's a new city. You need to change up the hairstyle.
Well, it's funny that you talk about bangs, because us women, we all know that if someone gets a drastic haircut or bangs, they're going through something in their life. I don't know what it is about bangs. It's always that form of women just to kind of express themselves in this way where I'm gonna get bangs, and then we get them, and just like you said, after we get them, most of us are like, why did we do that?
I mean, I'm looking back at photos, and when I had my nice side bangs, that was so cute, and this is fine. I like it. It's just very different, Sarah. Thank you.
No, I love it. You're giving me that whole New York vibe, the whole city thing. Yes.
I got the blazer, got the bangs,
the oversized blazer.
Very New York today. My hair is brown also, but this lighting you can't tell.
It looks darker than last time.
Somewhat darker, but yeah. So it's just a whole change. I've been gone for so long. I had to show up differently.
Yes. No. That's we had a conversation about this with Michelle about reinventing yourself, and how, we have people like Madonna and Lady Gaga and Janet Jackson who, they have to stay relevant. So they're always reinventing, kind of discovering themselves. And so I love that we're going to have that conversation, because I feel like there's so many of us that are going through that, whether it's job or a relationship or a move. I basically did it all at once too. And it's kind of rediscovering who am I? And so, how are you doing with all of that? Because there's a lot of changes for you as well.
Yeah, there's a lot. Just to start off, I've been so even when it comes to social media and this, getting back on here, I think is probably my first anything on LinkedIn, in the job world. And I just I've been going through other jobs for the past year. I was at, my longstanding job. That one ended in March of last year. So it's been about a year since I've had to kind of figure out who I am, what I'm doing. And so social media just was not helping. And I kind of had to, I've been taking hiatuses left and right. I'm no Instagram for this amount of time, no LinkedIn here. And it all kind of plays back into that whole finding yourself thing, theme that, for so long, and I know now I'm even taking 5 steps forward in our conversation, but for so long, I felt like I had to be on social media to do my job. And which is fine. I think a lot of people, that's how you reach people and everything. But once I kind of left and was on my own after, that first stint right out of college. I was at a job for 5 years right out of college, and not many people do that. And so I realized, I was like, okay, well, let's post something. Let's, talk about life or marketing or whatever. None of it. I have so many videos in my phone and so many blogs or, just little written comments on things, etc. None of them felt right. I have an entire folder of it, and I haven't put any of them out there because it all felt so inauthentic and just not me. And it felt, for so long I was living for something else. I was the company I worked for, which is not bad. I think a lot of people do that, especially if you're, the brand of the company or you're the
doing marketing branding for that
oh,
company.
100%.
You kind of become the face in a way.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, even in consulting stuff that I do, because I do a lot of that these days also, is that, you spend so much time being the face and being these other brands that when you have to start working on yourself, you're like, what do I do? Like, I mean, like,
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'll tell you this, it's taken me years to get to that point. You're much younger than me, and I'm just now starting to realize like that what my brand is, like my personal brand, right? Because it's the same thing. Like I represent a company. The company before this one, I was literally their face, so everything that had to do with marketing and branding was me.
yeah.
And then I had to kind of sit there and be like, well, who am I on my own,
Right.
without any of this. Yeah. So it took
as
a while,
much
but I'm getting there. You'll get there too.
100%. Well, and it's funny too, because as much as people said like, oh my God, Sarah, you are that brand, you are this company, like you rebranded and created the whole thing. Like that's who you are. I was like, as much as that's a great compliment, like I'm so happy that I was able to take this company and I was able to create a brand, with the help of all these other people and become that brand. When you leave, you're like, okay, what do I like? Who am I? What do I do? It's like you lost your like first baby. Like that was I have had to grow out of that in the past year, that it was like, okay, let's do another brand. Let's do another company or figure these things out. Let's work on myself, because it's like you lose a big chunk of yourself. And I had a friend tell me when I was going through all this last summer, he was like, it's like any relationship. They say if you're in a 4-year relationship, it takes 2 months or 2 years to get over the relationship. It takes half as
they
long.
did like a half.
Yes.
Really? Oh,
Yes. That's what a lot of people say. I mean, I think it depends on how much involved you were in the relationship or how much of yourself that you gave to it. But he was like, it takes, 6 to 9 months to get out, like, to really start getting some clarity and figuring out, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be, et cetera. I mean, it has been a year since I, left. I mean, I really was like, I was fresh out of college when I went there, and I was I felt like that was me, like so much, like my whole brand in the mortgage industry was that. And I'm fine saying that. That's fine. Like I've processed it now, whatever, but that's who I was Sarah, the director of marketing at that company. And so it has taken probably only a month ago did I really realize, okay, now I can like finally breathe. And I feel like, I've been at other companies since then, but it hasn't really hit yet.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm finally starting to be like, okay, let's work on myself and let's figure these things out. And just moving to New York, I mean, that doesn't help
either, because where were you before?
Atlanta.
South, right? Yeah. So you were in Atlanta. So then why New York? Like,
okay, I'll tell the story because people will be like, I can't believe you would do that. Or like all my friends are like, how did you just make it? I mean, I made it on a whim, like in a week. It took 7 days and I was like, I'm moving to New York.
Oh, okay. So super spontaneous.
Yes. So I've always had the goal. I always wanted to move to LA like that. I mean, I love LA, and a lot of people are like, ew, why LA? I'm like, I love it.
You were.
I love it. It is. It's just, I feel like naturally, like when I get to LA, when I step off the plane, I feel like at home. And it's just one of those cities that does it for me. And I understand it. I make friends easily there. Like it just feels really secure and a place that I need to be. Well, the plans for that weren't working out on my timeline. And I was actually supposed to move there when I moved here. But a month before I was supposed to move there, it was, the girl I was supposed to move in with, who like we are best friends, like we're pen pals. And she was like, hey, like the timeline, we need to push it out, 6 months until the end of the lease. I was supposed to sublease all these things, whatever. Well, I was in New York when she called me and told me that, visiting a friend. And this was like end of January. And she was like, what if you just moved to New York instead? And I was like, I mean, that could be kind of fun. Like I just needed to get out of Atlanta. I was in this limbo place living with my parents, which is fine. My sister had just moved to South Korea a year before. And so my parents were like, bring one of the kids home, like it was cool. But I was like, I need to get somewhere else that I can like feel productive and feel, like I, can go and be the VP of marketing at a job that I have. Like, I need my own space. And so she was like, well, I have a friend who needs a subleaser. And I looked and saw the place, like we FaceTimed everything. And he was like, okay, I need you to sublease it for 4 months. And then you might get like, you might be able to stay longer. And I said, sure. So then I signed the lease. I went to South Korea for 2 weeks to visit my sister. And the week that I came back, I moved to New York. And I've been here for 3 weeks.
And I mean, are you feeling good about it so far?
We'll go back to the whole finding yourself thing. I have struggled.
Okay.
They say like a lot of people say this, New York has a lot of people, but it is very lonely. And like, not in a super sad, depressing way. I mean, it's fine.
Okay.
I found my friend group, but I'm also, and this probably is just the LA in me, is that I'm much more laid back these days. Like I used to be very high strung and, I've kind of, this is kind of like a little tangent. I've kind of turned myself into a type A, OCD control freak kind of person. So I like to be as fluid as I can because in some things I'm like, I want to control every situation. So like me, everybody in New York is busy every single day. They're like, oh, I'm booked a week out.
It's so stupid. I'm sorry.
Like, for the
Okay.
first week, it's terrible. So like for the first week I was here, I'm like, I'm not busy. Like I don't have plans tonight. I don't know this
Yeah.
person. I don't know what to do. And I was feeling really lost. And like it's kind of been a roller coaster. Like the first week was a lot. And I felt like I'm a people person. You are too. Like I just want to be around people and I want to make connections and build connections with people. And it's hard here because everybody is on their own timeline and they're all trying to get to the next place and do the next thing. I've had some really good friends here that like I'm very grateful for that are like, we'll come over and do a dinner party or like, let's go out. Like they know that I'm new here. So like that's been really fun, but I found a good group of people, but it is definitely like, you can't see because my window's closed right now, but I mean, it's nice outside. I think it's 60 degrees. So more people are starting to come out and do things. Like when I moved here, it was 30 and it was freezing and like not having a car and having to walk 8 blocks to the grocery store is just like, I mean, I get it. They do it and that's fine. But I'm like, it is 30 degrees and I'm having to walk to the grocery store. And then the second I get to the grocery store, I'm hot because I'm so bundled up. And then it's just like, you're like, get me home. Somebody take me home. But it's fun. It's good.
Well, I mean, you're young, so I feel like the city.
Oh my God, you're young too.
I'm like 20 years older than you.
Oh, this is another thing I want to get into is because I constantly, and you're going to be like, oh my God, Sarah, I constantly think that I'm 28, but I'm
going to be 48 in August. I'm 20 years older than you. That's not lying. That wasn't
running out of time. I mean, that's still young though. I like in the sense, I think everything is young. Like I guess it's like, because you can always reinvent yourself. You can always change yourself and figure these things out. And that's what I'm figuring out for myself is that like, I feel like I'm running out of time at 28, which I'm not. And like, I have friends.
But I think there's something to be said about at least like acknowledging that you're not guaranteed tomorrow. It's not having that attitude of like, oh, I might not be here tomorrow. So let me just do whatever I want and be an a-hole about it. You know what I mean? There's a difference with that. And also being like, you know what, let me take advantage of the fact that we don't know.
So. Right. 100%. And it's like, I tell my friends all the time, like I have a really good guy friend who's kind of in the same situation as me right now with finding himself. Like on Saturday morning this week, I called my mom and I just started bawling my eyes out. I was like, because my ego is like, no, I'm going to tell everyone that New York is fabulous and like it is perfect and it is great and I'm living my best life. No, I mean, it's like, it's a lot. Like you're having to learn a whole new city and a whole new way of life. Like I don't have control over how I get places, like I said, and like all these things. And the L's down, so I can't get to Brooklyn to see my friend, or like I have to pay $40 for an Uber instead of $3 for the train. And so, but I like called my mom and I was like, I just don't know what to do. Like, I want to be creative and I want to do all these things. And I'm going through this whole journey of like figuring out who I am and where I want to be in the future. And like, I'm happy at my job. I'm happy with what I'm doing and, the opportunities that I'm getting. And I like where I am, personally, but at the same time, I don't like, I'm this, one extreme or the other. I always have been that. I see both sides of every coin.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. But like my guy friend too, I called him after and I was like, tell me the advice that I would tell you, because we were in the exact same situation. I will not listen to myself. I know what you're going to say is what I would tell you, because he's 37 and I'm like, you're young, you have plenty of time to figure things out. But, you know, he's really struggling with figuring himself out at the same time. So I was like, just tell me what you would tell yourself, because it's what I would tell you, and I will listen to you, but I will not listen to myself. And then Saturday was great and it was fun. And, you know, I went out and did a lot of things, but it's just, I think figuring out who you are is just like marketing. It's like, that's so cheesy of me to say, oh, figuring out who I am is exactly what I do in life, you know, for a job. But but it is, it's just trial and error. It's like,
well, I mean, it is. And trial and error, that's what it is. Like, everyone assumes that, you know, like your life is supposed to be like great all the time. Like, no, there's always going to be moments. I mean, that's life. I mean, even for me moving out to San Diego, I didn't know what to expect. I knew I was coming back home. I knew that like this is where I belong, but at the same time, like never did I envision that I move out here, live with my mom. I've been with her for 8 months now. You know, my social life is kind of non-existent.
I was about to say, how is it? I mean, because
I love it. It's great, but everybody assumed, oh, you're going to San Diego, you're, you know, going to meet someone and you're going to like, you know, get married and you're going to have like this and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. Like, I don't know, like all these people like envision for me. And it's not the case, but it's okay. Like, it's a process, right? Like, just because I grew up here and my family's here and I know a ton of people here doesn't mean that I'm going to come in and everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to come into place, you know. Like, it's still, I have my moments too. Like, it's the opposite of New York. Here it's like, I have nothing to do and nobody else has anything to do. Like, what do we do?
It's so chill down there, which
it's
like
super chill. Like,
it's kind of nice.
I forgot how chill it is and how laid back people are. I totally forgot about that.
I know. And I will, and it's funny because like I mean, I was so for the past 5 years, except for this past year, because this past year is like I had a job. I mean, I'll be very transparent to the audience here. I don't care. I tell everybody my story, but like I had a job that I thought that like I loved and was going to be my job forever. And like, yes, there are growing pains in any startup community, whatever. So you go back and forth, but like I created a brand that I loved and that I stood by. And then I lost that job in March. And then I found another one and I was like, this is great. I'm going to work with a friend also. And that was very short-lived. And I lost that job. And then I found the one that I'm at currently, and that was all great. But then I had started like, you know, I was trying to get out to LA and then that wasn't working out. And I had started dating a guy out there. And then he was like, well, I can't do this long distance. So then like that ended. And then I had all these other things go on. And I had told myself that 27, that year was going to be a big change year, because every 7 years you're a completely different person. And I was turning 28 in February, like a month ago, that I was like, that this whole past year has been my change year. But then when I was reflecting on it, like it was another venting session to my mom. And I was like, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. And they all suck. And I don't know what to do. And I'm so confused and everything. And she was like, when I stopped venting, she was like, are you good? And I was like, yeah, I just had to get it out. I'm like, I'm great. Now we're going to get in the solution. Now we're going to figure out where we need to be, what we need to do. But like, it's hard. I mean, it's been like
really hard. And, you know, I hate to burst your bubble, but like because you're young, you're only going to go through or, you know, finding yourself moments.
I know.
Yeah. Like you said, I'm doing a finding myself, you know, period as well right now. Yeah. So, you know, we all go through it, but it's always, I think it's nice to hear that even though that you're 20 years younger than me, different generation, we all struggle with the same thing. 100%. You know, like that's the key thing here, is that just because you're younger doesn't mean that you're not experiencing a lot that I'm going through, or vice versa, right? Like it's the human emotion. We all get through.
All right, seriously, welcome to life. And like I read, I was reading a book the other day, or like a quote from a book the other day, and I'm so bad at remembering quotes, but it was something about how like we can't compare this life to any other life, because we can't compare this to past lives. We can't compare this to future ones or other things, because this is the only life that we've lived. And we literally have, we have no idea what we're doing, and that's fine. But I think so much social media, again, like I love social media, and this is how you and I can connect, and we can connect to other people, and that's great. But I think that so much of it's a highlight reel, what everybody says. I mean, even you and I guarantee you and I.
Yes, yeah, love-hate relationship.
Exactly. I guarantee you and I don't look like this every single day of work. Like we know that. Like I'm not sitting here in a blazer. I had a sweatshirt on 30 minutes ago. Like
Yeah, well, but I will tell you this, with my social media, I've gotten really good at just showing up the way I am. Like the
yes,
other
you are good
day,
at that. Yes.
even my boss was like making fun of me because I was telling our loan officers, I'm like, you guys need to show up, on social media. And he goes, yeah, if Raquel can show up like literally straight out of yoga, dripping
Oh my God.
sweat, I was talking about how like I love when I like sweat puddles.
Same.
In
Same.
yoga, and I was in my car, hair up in a bun, no makeup, and I was still sweating from the class.
Yeah.
No filter, no nothing. And there's something to be said about being able to show up literally
Yeah.
like 100% real and in the moment. It's really
Right.
empowering. So I try to walk the walk in that respect,
Yes.
so that hopefully there comes a point where it's not just highlight reels and we don't all look perfect when we're on camera or on social media. I'm trying to kind of set an example of like, hey, let's just show up how
Well, I
we
mean,
are,
it's just so it's like there's so much opportunity in connecting with others like this. I mean, like think about, you know, I don't know, years ago, like the other day I was joking. I'm like, I just want a flip phone because I am so tired of being like pressured by all of these apps on my
And
phone.
sometimes
Like,
I want to throw my phone.
oh, 100%. And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't because I just got this one. So then I would have to wait for an upgrade or pay for this one, whatever. But the other day, like I was thinking like back forever ago, like how did you, I mean, the landline, it's like, hey, call me. Like, I mean, I still remember my landline too,
Yeah.
but it was like you had to memorize your friends' phone numbers so you could call them. Like I still have all my parents' phone numbers memorized and all these things. And that was fine. But like the fact that, we can have all these meetings and we can have all these conversations like to the public and with other people now is great. But then at the same time, I mean, it's a balance. Like that's what finding yourself is too. Like it is all a balance of how do you balance, doing this one thing that's not great for my mental health, but like it could be good and it opens doors. And then like, how do I balance, taking care of myself and all these things? And so
Yeah,
it is
I know.
definitely.
Yeah, we had I was gonna mention, so 2 days ago, Patty Arviello and Christy Bunce, who are
Yeah.
co-CEO and president of New American Funding, they got on a Zoom like for Women's History Month, and Patty and Christy were talking about that balance, and but to hear it from like two women that are like major powerhouses that are literally running a company, and to hear that they still focus on their families, they still like they dedicate time where their phone is like put away. Like Christy was saying that when she comes home from work, she goes on a walk with her husband every evening, and she always leaves her phone at home.
I love that.
Yeah, so I love also that these like women who you think are probably overwhelmed and have like a struggle balancing, hearing them being able to do it also makes me realize that like we're all struggling usually with the same thing, and a lot of that is the balance and trying to figure out how to balance our life, our personal, find ourselves, still a lot of us are people pleasers still, like
Yeah. Well, okay, and that's another good transition to boundaries. And like that I mean, that has been a huge thing for me this year is I'm such an empath and I'm such a I'm not a people pleaser, but at the same time I am. Like I'm not going to do something just because you want it done because I do. It took me a very long time, and that's like, boundaries and then actually realizing my worth instead of having to listen to other people to say it. Like for so long, I did not hear, oh, this is great without a backhand, but this. Like, oh, we love this idea, but how about you do it this way or something? Like there was never a compliment that was just a compliment. So it took me a very long time to figure out that like I'm actually good at this job. I didn't go to school for this job. So I think it takes people that kind of fall into something a little bit longer to realize like
into it too.
Yeah, same. And so it's like it takes, but like it's not even imposter syndrome. It's just like really not believing that like, okay, well, that person probably has a better idea on like what the marketing is going to be, or they probably understand this better. And then I was like, no, we all bring something to the table. And like I've really had to, teach myself that like knowing your worth and understanding like, okay, I actually do know what I'm saying. And the reason that you hired me is because you also appreciate the fact that I know what I'm saying and what I've done. And so we're going to set that boundary that like, no, I'm not just going to do this to like please you because you asked for it. Like, let's discuss it and let's see if it's the best route to do and those kind of things when it comes to work. Which I mean, boundaries in my personal life is a whole nother thing, but like, I'm like, yeah, sure, you need this. Like, yeah, that's a whole, we'll work on that one day. But like boundaries in work has been, I mean, that's been very helpful, but it's really hard. And like, you know, I have a girl who reports to me now who like, we're really, really good friends anyway. Like we've developed both a good personal and professional relationship, but she even, you know, she comes from a ton of corporate beatdown. Like she's worked in PR and she's worked at PR firms. And so like for her, it's like every idea you pitch, you feel like you have to over explain or you feel like they're going to say no and they don't care. And like all you're doing is trying to make somebody else look good. That is your whole job. And so she'll joke with me. She's like, wait, thank you for like actually like listening or like understanding that, or like, thanks for like suggesting that we do this and, you know, letting me run with something. I'm like, yeah, you're great. Like, I'll tell you, I mean, she is so good at her job. It's insane. Like I don't have to ask her for anything. I mean, she goes above and beyond, but she has so much of that corporate, like just constantly beat down and not accepted for what you're doing. And so like helping her work through that and set the boundaries has helped me do that as well. But I mean, it's hard as women. I think so many people have said it this month. Like it's hard to say no or to, you know, we are people that innately just want to help and make the situation better and like avoid conflict. And that's not fair to us.
Yeah, no, that's been a really huge thing for me too, is those boundaries. But I'm getting much better at it as well. And I mean, for someone like myself who does social media too, you know, I manage some social media pages and everything. Social media is 24/7. So that's another thing too,
Yeah.
is like my mom will laugh sometimes because she's like, it'll be 10 o'clock at night and I'm on my phone. She's like, are you working? I go, yeah. And she goes, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, but that's what happens with social media too.
Right.
So I also have to be better about like setting those boundaries of like, all right, you know what? It's 10 o'clock at night. Like I should not be doing this.
Right. Go to sleep. It's fine.
That people pleaser thing. Yeah, I still struggle a lot with the people pleasing. I don't know what I just want everyone to be happy and everyone to be like content.
It's hard. I mean, so I'm the exact same way. And it's like, I just want everyone to be okay. But then at the same time, because I'm two sides of every coin there is, at the same time, I'm like, all right, this is BS. And like, we all need to, we're not people pleasing anymore. We're going to do what we think is best and what we need to do. And it's not fair to us and our mental health to be such people pleasers. But you know.
Yeah, no,
easier said than done. All of this is easier said than done.
It is much easier said than done. But I also like think about how if I can set boundaries, if I can like stop people pleasing, if I can just show up as who I am, then like I'm also going to attract the people that belong in my life. Because I think that's also a huge thing, is that however you put yourself out there or whatever you're doing, like you're going to attract that type of person in your life. And I'm like, I don't want like toxic people. I don't want people also that don't respect boundaries. I don't want any of that. So then I'm like, I need to go ahead and be you know, showing what it is that I want to receive. So then that kind of like puts me in check a lot, is being like, Raquel, if you continue to do these behaviors, guess what? That's what you're going to bring into your life. And that's not what I want anymore. So I am a little bit more conscious about that.
Yeah. I think like, no, I completely agree with that. I was listening to a podcast the other day that was, it was called SOS, I'm Burnt Out on Life. And I was like, oh, this is intriguing. And it was just very much about like, we live in this world now where it's like, oh, self-care, like meditate and go to yoga, which I love. I mean, I do both of them.
I do yoga every week.
Yoga. I mean, yeah, I think I'm actually going to yoga tonight if I can fit it in. Busy New York schedule. I'm like, now I'm booked. And like, so I'm feeling better. I'm like, oh, I'm booked today. Sorry. Oh, I have to do this today. You know, I had to cancel an appointment earlier because I was too busy. The New York life. But I love those things. And like, I go to therapy. I have a work therapist. I have a personal therapist to like help me through, you know, separate things. But at the same time, that's not really self-care. That's kind of the self-care that like, you know, we all put on ourselves, and it's very, you know, consumerist kind of self-care. Whereas I think like when you start approaching life with like you set these boundaries and you have these values and you don't do anything in your life without adhering to those values and morals and boundaries that you've set for yourself, that's when you really start to care about yourself, because you're like, I'm not going to do something like, if this doesn't align with my value, and like, you know, I'm not going to work with someone who doesn't give me, like, for example, there was this woman, I have a really good design eye, and I used to not think that. I'm like, yeah, sure, I understand design, but like, no, I know how things like aesthetically go really well together and how people interact with them. And so for me, I've always worked in mortgage, but I'm really good, at fashion and styling and interior design and just branding in general. And so this woman needed help with her social media, and she owns a boutique in New York. And so I was just talking to her. I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to help you like on the side in my consulting business, et cetera, if you need it. She lives like, she's right down the road. So I was like, this would be fun. We could do weekend stuff. And then when I sent her a lot of the things that I've done, she's like, I'm not really sure that I can see how you would be. See, there she goes again. Yeah. I'm like, she's like, wait, what are you saying? That's exactly what the lady said. She was like, I'm not sure I can get a sense of like how well you design and can do these things, et cetera. And so that story kind of, illuminates my point that like, if you're not going to believe in me and give me a chance to work with something, I'm not going to keep putting my energy to prove myself to you. And so it's like those kind of people that like, if you don't immediately see my worth, because now I have worked so hard to see mine, and now that I see it, if you don't see it also, yeah, we might not work well together, but that's fine. But don't tell me that you don't see my, like, there's no reason for me to continue being your friend or continue like trying to help you, because that's one of my values. Like, if you can't see the value of me, then I'm not going to keep forcing it on you. And that's okay. We don't need to work together. We don't need to, be in life together, and that's cool. But like, I see the value in you and how I could help you. And if you don't see that, that's fine. But like, you're not going to be in my circle. And so I think it's, once you can stick to those things and like you really understand like what are the ways that you approach life and how you approach it, then I think you really start to care about yourself, and like really start to like only do things that align with you. And then that's like that true self-care, which is like, it's all mental. Like, yes, the physical is great. And I'm if I don't get a workout in, I'm crazy. Like, I'm depressed all day long. So like, I live right by Central Park. So it's really nice because I can just go for a walk if I don't get to the gym. But at the same time, I think it's the mental that really, is what we have to work on to, be healthy in the way we approach life.
Yeah, it'll be a work in progress forever and ever. So that's the beauty of it.
Well, that's what life is. I mean, you're doing really great, and then it hits you with something the next day, and you have puffy eyes the following day because you're just like crying your eyes out, and you're like, I have no idea how to do this. And like, that's for everybody. I mean, like, so many women, have that issue, and men too. I mean, it's just, you're never really found. Like, you're always finding yourself and always continuously trying to figure out, what do I want to be today? But there are certain things that are lifelong, like those values and things. And like, once you really understand yourself. But sorry, I kind of got on a tangent there, like I always do.
No, it's all good. It's just, it's once again, like it just goes by so quickly. We're already over 30 minutes, but I just love that we can have these type of conversations and be very open and transparent about it, so that anybody else that's listening can also, at least maybe they're struggling today and they hear us and they think, okay, you know what, at least these ladies, like, they're dealing with the same thing. And it's like we're all struggling with it. So hopefully it'll help in that way, for everybody to kind of.
Well, maybe we do a monthly one of these, and we'll just do like a 10-minute one, and it'll be like on a Monday, like a one-off week. And we'll just be like, how are you doing? And like, let's tell other people, like, this is how I'm struggling. This is a monthly check-in.
There you go. I like that. We'll have to talk about that. But we're already over 30 minutes, so I'm gonna have to cut this short because I got down in the background. Was probably like,
I'm used to it.
Yeah, things to do as well.
I'm used to be cutting short. I'm used to it. I know I can talk. So.
But thank you for coming on and reconnecting and catching up. And so we'll have to discuss some further stuff. But
of course,
thanks again, and thank you to everybody that's coming in and showing up. And I will see you all next Wednesday.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Raquel.